Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Well, I don't know if it's good morning wherever you're listening, but it's good morning for me. And hey, helping me out yet again. And I mean, let's just make this the official announcement. What's going on, Nikolai? What's up, buddy?
What is up? It is morning.
It is. It
It
is.
is. I've got my coffee, so we're doing
Yes.
okay.
I'm in California. He's in California, but he's a little bit more north, quite a bit north, about 6 hours from me. But we're making this work. And we're supposed to have an episode, and it still might happen, where Omar comes on and says, "Hey, my bad, guys, I can't be here for a couple years." It hasn't been able to happen because he's that busy. So in between that, me and him had this conversation, said, "Hey, maybe we can get another co-host on to help me with the show." And I was like, I don't know who I can find. And around that same time in conversation, Nikolai all of a sudden messaged me, and we were talking too, and he said, "Hey man, if you ever need me to come on and help you with the show, so down." And I was like, perfect timing. Let's do it. And maybe I hinted at him uh, a lot, and he was like, I think this guy really wants me to help him with his show.
I can take a hint.
Yeah, take a hint, bro. But that wasn't my intention. I was just kind of telling Nikolai what was the situation over here, and he said, "You know what? I'll make some time, and we'll come on the show and help you out." So thanks for doing that, buddy.
You know it. It's really awesome to be invited, and it's just fun to hang out and to talk about fun stuff. So
Indeed, a lot of fun stuff to talk about. This episode is what we used to call a fireside chat or a flyby. We're just kind of doing a little thing where we are gonna read the reviews people have sent me, and they have sent me love mail and hate mail and things like that, and I want to address them. So on my side with love, and it's a little bit comical for me as well. So there's no hate here or nothing like that. I'm going to make fun of it maybe a little bit, but it's just because I think it's hilarious. But at the same time, I'm taking it very serious. Just so you know, that's how I am. That's how I deal with things. I make fun of stuff. So don't be offended. Whoever sent me all this mail, different people, by the way.
do you get neutral mail
Neutral.
where they're like this is fine?
You know what? I've gotten one review like that. One review where they're like, they're right.
This is just fine.
Yeah, no, but hard. It's usually either hard right or hard left. You know what I'm saying? So, that's just kind of how it goes. But hey, it's the internet. People can do what they want on there. They can be super brave, say whatever they want, and get away with a lot of stuff, unless you're conservative on Twitter. But now that's changing. So, but anyways,
Different show.
yeah, that's a different show. That's not here. So hey, thanks again. I'm glad that you're making the time for this. And so this show is basically, we're gonna go maybe even talk about whatever where our minds are at. Me and Nikolai do a lot of talking outside of the show, and we kind of share our thoughts, and we're pretty close as far as like where our minds are in the conspiracy world, in the Christian world. Um, and I think that's why I think it was important to say, hey man, if you can help me out and come on the show, we're pretty much on the same page. Uh, Yet we haven't really found where we're like completely in disagreement, but that's because we're both like, hey man, outside of very few issues, everything else we're holding with an open hand. And I think that's how my approach to everything now is like, hey, I could be wrong. Like for example, about the rapture, pre-trib rapture. I don't stand on that at all, but I actually hope that I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? Why would I not want to get raptured immediately when stuff's going to go down real bad? I don't want to be here. That sounds like a great plan. So I'd love to be wrong, but I don't feel the text talks about no pre-trib rapture. So that's just my stance. But if I'm wrong,
Well, you also don't hold it just because you want to.
correct. There you
Oh, this sounds better. I'll
go.
hold that instead of looking for what's true because there's a lot of stances that would be really nice to have.
Mhm.
But when you're looking for truth, you again open hand. It works both ways.
Correct. Well, anyways, we can babble on about where we are, but hey, let's just get right
Babylon.
into it. Babylon.
Subliminal there.
Don't get people started, man. I've already been accused of being Luciferian, so because of being called Fire Theft Radio.
Don't feed the trolls.
So I just want to read some reviews. I pulled up the Apple reviews here, so there might be reviews on other podcatchers. Sorry, I didn't get to those, but I'm just gonna read off the ones I have here. The most recent one, we just got one in April, brand new one by Urban Sangria. This person might like to drink, but
Bourbon sangria.
yeah, and that is what they put.
Wow. Okay.
5-star review, and they said very interesting. So that's all I need. I like that the 5 stars and then very interesting, because if it was like very interesting and like 3 or 2 stars, then that very interesting means something else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
it could also be a neutral, because I've gotten that a lot from people. Very interesting, and then they just change the subject.
Right. That's usually when I freak people out, when I say talk about the Illuminati and they're hiding the giant bones. They're like very interesting. How about them Dodgers? You know, like they'll say,
Right.
they'll switch it up to that. And and this is actually the title of the show, and this is the reason, one of the things that we're going to address in the show. Back in December, someone gave us a 5-star. It was Jeremiah Benjona, and he just put in quotation, you know. And if you know, you know, because the number one complaint of the show is me, primarily me and Omar. I've listened back to our episodes back, the early episodes back in the day, and yeah, we, after a lot of sentences, we say, you know, like it's just impulsive. My family gives me a hard time, my sisters, because I'll talk to them and I'll say, you know. And one of my sisters, she gets so upset about it. She's like, no, I don't know. Okay, stop saying that. No, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, you say you know after everything. And I was like, oh, wow, you remind me of my listeners. That's what they're saying, you know.
Yeah.
They're getting pretty upset about me saying you know all the time. And I got to say, if you didn't bring it up, I probably wouldn't have noticed, because that's just how I talk. Like I said to Nicolai, English is my second language. I did not know English growing up as a kid, and I learned it later. And I have a lot of bad habits. Okay, so I apologize. And I responded to one of the emails because they were pretty upset about it. And they're like, hey, I'd love to listen to you, but I just can't. I can't. I got to turn it off. I got 2 of those, actually, because Chuck is just always saying, you know, and it's super annoying. And I can't stand that. And I responded to say, hey, I apologize. My bad. Yeah, so I responded to her email, and I was like, hey, I apologize. I'll work on it. And then I worked on it for 2 episodes and forgot again. And then I did a Gary Wayne episode, and it's like all the you knows between the Gary Wayne one and the one we did, me and you, with 007. Yeah. It's like all the you knows I suppressed came out in those 2 shows, because I was like, you know, like I just had they just pushed them down my stomach over here, and they just came out, and they were just like, we have to get the you knows out of here, you know, just like I said it right now.
Yeah.
So,
there it is.
So, I apologize, and I promise you, this is Fire Theft Radio 3.0. We're revamping it. We're doing some changes. And I'm going to work on it. I'm going to work on my speech. That, and the other one was, I got another one who said, Chuck needs to remove you know from his lexicon. And he needs to stop swallowing his spit. We can hear that.
Yeah, drool.
Yeah,
drool, sorry. Chuck.
I'm just like,
hey, well, let's go back and address the, you know, when you're having a conversation, and I would say an interview is kind of a conversation, right? So think about it. You're the host. You're supposed to be driving the show. So when you ask a question or you make a statement, it's probably when you're making a statement, mostly. But I have to go back and make a spreadsheet. But the you know is an invitation for the other person to talk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like clear the deck, you talk.
Right.
So it's both a verbal tick, and we get those. I remember being in seminary and in preaching class and getting critiqued, and people will beat those things out of you
Hmm.
and say, "Oh, I counted 400 ums,"
Right, right.
or whatever, and you just have to really work through it. But uh, part of it is, I think, your internal invitation for others to speak.
Hmm.
So it's you instinctively being a giving person, giving them time. So whoever's complaining about that wants you to be selfish and to not let them talk, which is interesting. So no, obviously I jest, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's I think it does come from that. At the interview, you're trying to draw out people
Yeah, because I mean,
questions.
that's just how I talk. And when we have conversations with me and Omar, I end it and they're like, and I tell you, and then, you interject and you get in there. So that's kind of my thing. I'm not a newscaster where they just ask one really dry question and they let the guy go. I don't personally like that. Like you said, our intention was always to be a conversation. We're having conversations. If you listen to the first episodes, hey man, we have you on. We just want to have a conversation. Let's talk. So this is how you hear me talk on the show. This is normally how I talk outside of the show. I don't really change much. It's the same. So
True, it's
that
raw
being,
Chuck.
yeah. So that being said, like this is me, but it does annoy a lot of people. So I will personally work on it so that I don't, bore you or bother you with all this, and me going, swallowing my spit all the time. And I have a weird setup. So unfortunately, right now I have to deal with this setup, and my microphone kind of points down. I have to look down a little bit. I'm trying to work on the way. I know people can say, "Well, if you can just lift up the mic," not that easy. It's hard to explain my situation
It's
in
a
my
whole thing.
studio. It's really difficult. So that being said, when you look down and speak, obviously you create a little bit more saliva than you'd like. So I kind of have to work on that. It only works really well if I'm not talking all the time and I just ask the question and then I jam out. But even now that as I'm talking, I had to do it like 6, 7 times. It's hard. I got to look away from the mic so that you don't hear it. So it's a little difficult. But hey, work on it. See, I just did it right now. I'm working on it. Here we go. So that being said, I hear you folks out there. Love you guys. Thank you for listening. Um, I changed one person's heart and they said, I'm sorry for the harsh email. I'm going to continue to listen to your show. You sound very humble. And, because I didn't get upset. It was just the truth. I went back and I'm like, what is she talking about? And I went back and I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty bad. Like, I guess when you point it out, right? When you point it out, you're like, oh, I can't unhear it now. And so maybe I shouldn't have pointed it out. But if you're listening to this episode moving forward, you're not going to hear it. And then I apologize for all the episodes behind this episode where you're going to hear me, Omar, you know.
Well, also, if that's the worst critique you receive, I mean, there's some pretty heavy topics, pretty weird things, and if you know is the worst critique you receive, maybe you need to be more controversial, Chuck.
Yeah, that's the one I
Maybe.
got most often. And then I keep telling Heiser every time I remind him he comes back on. He came back on at least 3 times, and his episodes are the most controversial. And I'm talking about he talks about theology and its ancient Hebrew context, and people flip out. But if I talk about lizard people, flat Earth, you know, Nephilim, hybrid fallen angels having sex with humans, that's all good. Those are the most downloaded episodes. They love those episodes.
Oh yeah.
But then those theological ones where we're just like, all right, let's interpret the Bible in its actual context. How dare you? And it just gets a little crazy right there.
Yeah, and you said it's like
Mm-hmm. Ooh,
uh,
ooh.
yeah, on top of it.
But
Yeah, it's it is interesting the all of a sudden the personal, like people take those things personally, and oftentimes it's because you're all of a sudden rubbing up against bumping up against someone's when you hit up against someone's theology, they start to feel uncomfortable, because if you just talk about lizard people and just lizard people, it's sort of like, wow, that's weird, and that can just fit in the category of weird. But all of a sudden, you start connecting with the Bible, because there's other things even unbelievers will say they respect in the Bible,
Mhm.
and so all of a sudden you start messing with, quote unquote, messing with the Bible. People start to get offended, because then you know what? You're getting dangerously close to, you have some personal responsibility now to something or to some information. It doesn't just get to sit in the category of weird, which that's fun. You can just talk about weird stuff all the time. You know,
Indeed. I just want to read a couple more reviews and then we'll move on and we're going to talk about some weird stuff. Again, this show is just kind of like, hey, say hello, everybody, to Nicolai. He's going to be helping me quite a bit. And also, you are starting his own page and might be doing stuff with that page. So we'll talk about that later. So you can plug all that so people can go give him a follow, because he will be putting some important things. He was just on the Josh Monday podcast. And also want to shout out to Josh Monday. Show he's putting out content way more than I do. So if you want some content on Christian stuff and the conspiracy stuff, that's a good
it's not a race.
It's not a race.
He's
I know.
winning.
Yeah, yeah, he's winning. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm gonna read some more reviews. It says, good work. This is from Traveler of the World. 5 stars. These guys are funny and down to earth. Enjoy the podcast. The lines between truth and lies can be a little blurry. Keep plowing through. That's awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Traveler of the World. We also have Joyful. Thanks, Chuck and Omar, for being obedient to the Holy Spirit, spreading the gospel while bringing us thought-provoking and intriguing facts is all we can ask. I recommend everybody catch the fire. Ooh, I like that. Catch the fire. I dig it. And that's a 5-star review as well. Another 5-star review. This podcast is a bridge between conspiracy theories and Christianity without coming across as a judgmental or overly intellectual. Interesting and thoughtful approach. That's from Phil Goodrich Art. Appreciate that, Phil. Thank you so much. If you still listen to the show, thank you so much.
It's excellent. I don't know if being told that you're not overly intellectual is a backhanded comment. But
no, there's definitely some podcasts I listen to, and of course I say this with respect, where it's a hard listen because they do sound very smart, and I'm like, ooh, I got to look some of these words up. What are you talking about? And it's good stuff, but it's a hard listen.
I get the comment. No, it's good.
Yeah, we're just messing around. Now, this person put Pyro Kleptos Unite. I like that, because in one of our early shows, we called our followers Pyro Kleptomaniacs, because Fire Theft Radio, and it stuck with him, or her, because the name is For the Remnant. It says Fire Theft Radio, Finding the Reborn, Fight the Regime, Forever, Thought Revolution. Dang, I like that.
Wow, that one's epic.
I like that. Thank you so much. And this is from, this is from 2 years ago. I should pay attention to these more. Well, those were all the 5-star. Yeah, those are all the 5-star reviews. Here's a 3-star review. Ooh, let's read that one. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so in a couple of episodes, I joked about that the 2 and 3-star don't work. That you only can give us 4 and 5-star, and that you should even. It was a joke. This person took it serious. It was Matt, 28 ATL. No rating that are fewer than 5 stars. Maybe because Fire Theft Radio has gotten lost in the media landscape with so many podcasts.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of podcasts out there.
There is a lot.
Definitely a thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I started the show 7 years ago, 7 years ago, there was hardly any. There was a few thousand. Now there's millions. There's millions of podcasts. That's not even exaggerating. Hey, he was honest. I was joking, Matt. 28 ATL. It was a joke.
ATL, is that Atlanta?
Maybe. And he's 28. I know a lot about you. I'm gonna go find you. Just play.
A 28-year-old.
28-year-old from Atlanta. Let's do it. And so, Chuck and Omar, take the fire back. FTR's wonderful podcast with a wealth of information and wisdom. I strongly encourage you to listen to their content. Their broadcasts have helped me spiritually, emotionally, and intellectually. 5-star review from Wilco LV. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot to us. It's definitely a blessing to get those kinds of messages. These kinds of messages do help, because I was telling Nicolai, and I was just struggling with the show not too long ago, because Omar is going to take a long break, and I was like, is it even worth doing the show? I was kind of unsure if I should keep going, and then I got a ton of messages like this, actually, with people saying they either started a ministry because of shows like this, they were helped spiritually in some way. Someone shared some of the stuff saying I was in a cult, and I relate to their story, and I definitely, their information helped me out, and I had to, I left, which really, really was a blessing to hear. And it always surprised me. It's when I hear that information, it's like, oh, wow, it's really reaching people. And even though it may be not as big as I'd like it to be, everyone wants better, more downloaded podcast, but it's helping the people that it's reached, and that's amazing to me. That's amazing to me. So in retrospect, I told Dr. Future, because I told him, like, how many downloads do we have, and what's your daily Facebook following? Like Facebook, we have probably 2,500 people and things like that. And he just put it in retrospect, and he's like, it's like you're running a mega church with the amount of people that listen to you. And I didn't even think about that. It's just like, wow, that's true. I didn't even think about it in that way, where it's like, if that's your daily following, it's like, yeah, you're running a mega church. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So,
yeah.
Well, I'll reread one more review. Excellent topical discussions. 5-star review from G8134. I truly enjoy the effort put into each podcast. Thought, music, humor. These episodes have helped open new paths of thought, and have kept me company through good and bad days. Well done. Well, awesome. I'm glad to hear that, G8134. And I appreciate that you've been listening to the show, and that's awesome that we have been there in your bad times, of course. That is really cool. And all the music is chosen by me, yours truly, Chuck, so you're welcome. A lot of synthwave.
You need one of those YouTube channels where it's just the music going, and it's like a cartoon of you like doing something. Mm-hmm. So people can just listen to that while they're studying, or
I see. Yeah.
Kicking back,
Mm-hmm.
Be like you, like,
if I do that, they'll realize. If I do that, they'll realize that I stole all that music from YouTube.
Okay, maybe not. No, just keep it how it is.
Yeah. Now, people have reached out, and if you don't know, honestly, if you just not Google, but if you just search on YouTube, synthwave or chill wave, that's what we use on Fire Theft Radio. And you can it's hours and hours of that. There's many hours, many quote unquote albums that they make, like online albums. So if you guys really like the music, I've gotten a lot of compliments from the music. That's what it is. Just go online, go to YouTube, search synthwave, chill wave, and you'll get all kinds of stuff like that. All right. Nicolai, as for you, thank you also, because you've listened to the show quite a bit. And some people just say, like, hey, caught a few episodes. Thanks, but it seems that you've heard quite a few episodes, and you've even told me, which was encouraging, that you know of other people that have checked out the show and things like that. So that's encouraging as well. Thanks for doing that. And now we're here. We're on the show. You're part of the show. So if you want to be on the show, listen to all my episodes, and I'll let you on. I'm just kidding. But
unlocks. There's a key that you get.
Yeah.
The Easter egg you get.
Unlocks the perk. Yeah, exactly. No, there's all kinds of hidden gems inside. But we are heading in this direction where we want to do more things like live videos. We want to be pretty much part of the we're getting left behind as far as technology goes and what podcasters are doing these days. Everyone likes to do live feeds. So I did a few of those on Instagram. If you don't follow us, go follow us over there on Fire Theft Radio on Instagram and
I
check us
think
out.
the appropriate verb is you're getting Kirk Cameron
Kirk Cameron, what does that mean?
left behind, yo.
Oh, there we go. We got to keep those. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm getting Kirk Cameron. Oh, dude, I'm gonna say that now. It's gonna get stuck in my head. But also, before we get into talking these into the what we want to do and just our summation of this, and as you realize, there was no intro. I mean, we started the show. This is it. Like we're just talking, me and Nicolai, and we're just going through the reviews. I just wanted to.
Are you recording this?
Yes.
Oh,
You didn't say that. I was like, you made me doubt myself. I'm like, wait a minute, am I going? I had to go look. But what was I saying?
I don't know, I threw you off. You were talking about going through, and we're talking about where we're going to go, and then you were actually in the middle of a segue.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I threw off your segue.
No worries.
T-boned it. See what I did?
Yeah. Reset.
Well,
I'm busting. Okay. You threw me off. I'm busting a Joe Biden right. Like resetting right now.
Oh man.
The what's it called? That little alien inside my head. That's what I think is going on. Like in Men in Black.
Yeah.
Like the alien inside of Joe Biden's head is dying, and he's like, I don't know what to say. You're a famous American baseball player. When he told the Pope.
I just saw that one. Oh my gosh. That's just the best was some aide came up right after and was like, "You called him an African American?"
Yeah.
And then like cuts.
Yep. I saw that
great.
One. Hilarious. Okay. So what I want to do is kind of say, hey, this is what we've been doing. If you don't know what Fire Theft Radio is about, we are about 20-something minutes into this show. I'll let you know what it's about. I'm scrolling through my own feed right here through my own episodes because I want to let people just to like a summary of what we're going through, what we've covered on the show. And if you don't know what we are about, I'll tell you right now. Our first few episodes, the first episode that's available on the feed, the first few we had to kind of delete. They didn't work out. They were just really badly made. And a lot of our thoughts changed on the matters. So they're not available. That wasn't really that was kind of our perspective at first, but now there's episodes in there. I got to tell you, just like Dr. Future, he has a whole thing, like hundreds and hundreds of episodes, and he's changed so much, doesn't agree with everything that he was once standing on in many things, and he's okay with that. And you know what? That kind of inspired me to be like, you know what? The same here. I'm going to leave the content, and I'm just going to give you updates of where I'm at, and because we're growing. Because as the show has progressed, and we've learned more about the Bible, current events, it has definitely changed my mind about a lot of things and made me like okay with not knowing, which is, I believe, a healthy place to be for a Christian when it comes to non-salvific issues or the deity of Christ and God. If it's not about God, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or salvation, everything else should be open to conversation. Do you agree with me, Nicolai?
I do. I think if you're unable to have a conversation about a topic, if you shut everyone down to say, no, this is the thing that's true, and we're done talking about that makes for not just a pretty boring life in general, but it really limits your fellowship, to be honest. Is that you have a perspective, you have one vantage point that you can see. And just like you were saying, if it's not something that's our solid foundation we're standing on, we can look around and see, and we can discuss and have conversation about other things. And I think for I think the majority of people, the longer that someone's alive, the longer that someone walks with the Lord, the more things are not as important as you thought, which sounds weird to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of it becomes, if the things that are important become just so much more important.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying, our relationship with the Lord, who He is, His Word, as far as His Word being our ultimate foundation. that lets you talk about lizard people. It lets you talk with other people. That allows you to just kind of build relationships with people. Otherwise, you become these. It's like grandma's plastic covered couch. You know, I did that. For you.
That was for me. Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. Well, I agree with that. So because of that, on the show, we've touched on a lot of things that we thought were kind of outrageous at first and maybe not possible, and especially didn't think that they were related to the Bible. So one of the first episodes that we did, if you look on the feed, we have a Stranger Things episode. And we did that way before we even thought that Dr. Michael Heiser, was going to do a book on Stranger Things and the spirituality behind it. And he ended up doing one, and it's a great book. My daughter read it. She understood it. She read it when she was 14. So it's a fairly easy book to understand. And I highly recommend that book. And it really just explains in that show that there is this other realm, and it's an unseen realm, the spiritual realm, literally right behind the walls. I like that kind of like symbolism that they were doing, where there's a wall and that creature was coming out of the wall, the Demogorgon, and you're like, wow, that is how the spiritual world works. You're surrounded by it, and it is your home, it is your school, it is your job, wherever you are, that you are touching like on the ground, the upside down. The spiritual realm is there. It is not something that can get disconnected. And that show really brought that to life, that it is all connected, and that these entities can come to and fro from the realm that is unseen to the seen realm. And that show really brings that out. And I don't know if a lot of Christians realize that. So that's why we brought that up in that episode that we did. That's episode 6 of Stranger Things. The show's called Stranger Things Among Us. It's I think an important episode and very pivotal because it really sets up what the rest of the show is going to be about. Do you have something to say about that, Nicolai?
My internet was hiccuping, and so I caught most of what you were saying. Okay. Probably because I was in the upside down for part of that. But yeah, I think one of the things that really hits home for me right now, and a lot of things I'm studying, is how fiction, or you could just use the word myth, really does impact how we think about the world. But not just that, a lot of times it helps us encapsulate really difficult concepts and makes them more digestible. It allows you to look at a topic, see someone else interact with it, have a beginning, middle, and end if it's a story, and then you're able to digest it easier because you've seen someone walk through some of these more difficult topics. So when you're talking about Stranger Things, you're talking about the impact that we have, like, it really is helpful to look at something like that and to then take that thought and then, compare it with scripture, balance, try to find some sort of balancing point to the thought and truth, because not all fictional thoughts are worth your time, but when you can balance it out there to see that, it can be really helpful. And in fact, while you were talking about it, I went back to my Amazon cart and saw that book by Heiser in my cart, and I ordered it. So,
boom!
Thanks for the reminder.
Of course, very good book. I'm on my second read. I highly recommend it, and it really explains that the battle between the unseen and the seen, and how we're in the midst of it. And yes, the show we kind of talks about the occult symbolism and things like that. But the occult likes to do that in every movie. They like to take what is true and they insert their ideological or their stance on what they believe about these things spiritually through their eyes, is what I was trying to say. And so we have to be aware, in my opinion, as best as we can, of how both sides think about these things. I say this often on the show. It's like you're fighting a war. We know that Christians say, oh, we're in the midst of this spiritual war. Okay. Now, what is good to fight in war, the knowledge of how your enemy works. Okay? So if you get those things into consideration, this is why we do the show, this knowledge, Fire Theft Radio, fire being a symbol of knowledge. We are spreading this knowledge, this fire, so that you can be a little bit more maybe aware and know how the enemy works through the things that we experience on a day-to-day basis. I was in a service where I go to a Calvary Chapel, and the pastor said something very, very important. He said, look, you guys come to church Wednesday and Sunday. Our Bible study is about an hour. Other than that, if you don't come in between, you're spending the rest of the hours of the week on either Instagram, the internet, and your life. Okay? So if you are not dedicating any time at all, other than those 2 hours you come to church to learn about God, to worship God, you might start to see why a lot of Christians are like, I wonder why I struggle so much with my spiritual life. I wonder why I struggle so much with his sin. I wonder why I struggle so much with understanding the Bible and things like that, when we do not practice the discipline of our faith. Because despite God being gracious and blessing us, we do need to be disciplined in order to learn more about him. So the reason I read the Bible through and through and listened to all these shows, all these scholars about a lot of different topics, was because I said, okay, I gotta hunker down, because I just spent 10 to 15 years of my youth in a cult, and I didn't even know I was in it because I didn't understand the Bible. So I just bought whatever the pastor said, good. And when I read that whole thing of the Bereans, and was it Paul who came around and said, hey, he was preaching to the Bereans? Am I wrong? Was it Paul? Yeah, I think it was. And
that's cool.
Yeah, and so the people in Berea was like, let's go see if these things are true. Let's go search that out. That's how we need to be. We can't just take, no matter who you believe in, whether it's a political figure, a professor, a pastor, and be like, okay, let's question this, like a healthy questioning, not like, oh, that's not true, it's false, whatever. No, let's go see if this is true or not. Is a very important stance to take on anything that you practice in life. Anything. I'm talking about anything. And I realized that, and that's what led me to do all this research and to get into starting Fire Theft Radio. I mean, this was doing that was the outcome that gave you Fire Theft Radio. That's what it was. And we're here now, and we're doing this show. So I realized a lot of people needed this, a lot of Christian and non-Christian people, because even non-Christian folks are sharing the show, and they're saying, like, I didn't realize that these symbols, these occult symbols, are everywhere. Your household appliances, the bleach that you have, literally because of the companies who own them and their religious practices, the cars that you own, the days of our week, the months, the years, it's everywhere. But we're unaware. We're surrounded by the gods, and we're unaware of their symbols.
And some of it's not because they have a deep feeling about it, so they put their symbol on it. Some of it's just marketing.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, these subliminal messages help us sell stuff, so they may not even be using it nefariously on a cultic or religious occultic level.
It's
for them, it might just be marketing. Like, oh, these symbols, like, for whatever reason, they connect with the other thoughts or things, or psychologically they link our brand with something else, and so then people buy it. It could be just that.
Yeah.
And they may be ignorantly kind of pushing it forward. But
absolutely, but
it really doesn't matter if it's ignorantly or not.
Yeah, but it's the result of living in a subconscious pagan world. It's the culture we're in, but we don't know that we're in it. And that's kind of like the unseen realm. You literally are surrounded by the symbols because we, like the Bible says, live in Babylon. We're in this kind of Babylonian state, and we're completely unaware. And these are the powers and principalities up in high places that we're fighting against. And it seeps into our culture. and boom, we have all these symbols in there. So yeah, you're right. A lot of companies and a lot of even like actors and movie companies might not even know. Well, I don't know about Hollywood. I think most of Hollywood knows what's up, but I mean, like at least the actors, I think they just follow along. They're just starstruck. They get them young, brainwash them. You can tell if you look at the videos of how they were when they were young and how they are like just 5-10 years later. They're a completely different person. Their mind changed. Their religion changes. Everything changes. So like they're groomed into something else, and then they inspire other people that love them to be like them. And that's all intentional, man. That's just the stuff that's going on. Any thoughts before I move on?
It reminds me of, it reminds me kind of like you got a 10-year-old dresses like a thug, flashes gang signs, not realizing that really means something somewhere. Um, it's almost play acting because it's in the hallways of a school and there's limited things that can happen there to a certain extent. And once you get on the streets and you sort of see full, unabashed, no limitations put on some of these things, there's a stark reality shift oftentimes, as to what that kind of looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's for a lot of people. They're flashing signs. They're saying the words. They're play acting almost to a certain point, and you can do that until it's not play acting anymore. It's not fun anymore. Now it's just what you're a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a slide. It's a slide down into those things. There are plenty of kids who were flashing Illuminati signs when they saw Jay-Z do it, and they don't recognize that there's
Right.
things behind it.
Right. And that's the thing. It's the taking over subliminally of your free will. Omar spoke about that a couple times, and we talked about how the devil works, and he's very, very, and I don't mean this as a one personal entity. I mean, we know now it's a network of situations going on in the unseen realm, but that's how the evil spiritual side works. They try to usurp your power by always tricking you. That Garden of Eden story is very telling because it's repetitive through all of history. We'll give you something. We'll give you knowledge. We'll give you something, or maybe even this other thing. We're promising you this if you do this other thing. And it's a lie. It's always kind of twisting the truth, because some of those were half truths. What was happening with the serpent and Eve, right? Because it was not a full-on lie. It was just a deception. It's partial truth with a little bit of lie sprinkled on top, and boom, so it makes kind of sense. And that's how most of the occult works. It's like, yeah, there is some truth to it. That's why there's truth, in my opinion, also in a lot of religions, other religions. Yeah, there's a little bit of truth in here, truth here. Buddhism makes more sense, blah, blah, blah. Or this other thing makes more sense, and things like that. Because that's what it's like. It's like a little bit of truth here, a little bit of truth there, and people end up, practicing things that they don't know is opening up doors to the unseen realm. Next thing you know, your life's getting torn apart, and you're like, what's going on? And you're having these spiritual entities destroy your life. And people think it's kind of normal. It's funny because we even have the lingo. We say, oh, he's just battling his demons. We don't mean it like in the supernatural sense. It's just like, oh, he just has some stuff going on. But that's very real. That's actually more accurate than people might think. Is they're battling demons and they're unaware. They want to destroy you. They hate you. They've hated humans from the beginning of time. That was the thing. That's why they want to eradicate us. So, moving on. These are just our thoughts. Sorry if it's a boring episode for you, but this is just our thoughts. We're just talking through this thing. We have one of the least downloaded episodes I have. I wouldn't say least. It's when I say least, they're all pretty close, but I'm saying like literally by a few numbers. But the ones that I've gotten the most message for that has helped him out are our Mike Davis episodes. Mike Davis, he has his doctorate. He knows Mike Heiser as well. We all met at the same time. You guys might know the story already. Doctorate also in Hebrew, and um, definitely knows his Bible. I mean, left and right. And I've had him on the show many, many times, lost count. We've had him on the show more than most people, talking about emotional intelligence, biblical context, and just a lot of things that have really changed my life. And I've gotten so many messages. That's the one. His episodes are the ones that I get the most messages of how helpful they've been to people that are believers and non-believers alike. So you know that the information he is giving out is very helpful, because a lot of us Christians struggle with our emotions. We just kind of assume that we can't do nothing about our emotions. The church I used to go to, they say the emotions are the devil. They're of the devil, and that's not accurate. He didn't create anything. God gave you those emotions, and He gave them to you for a reason, so that you can make judgments. That's bad. That's evil. You need to hate evil. You need to love truth. I always ask people that question when I used to teach at church. Give me an example of bad emotions. And people were like, oh, hate. Oh, give me an example of good emotions. Oh, love. And then I flipped it on them. What about when the Bible, and this is something that Mike said on the show, and he taught me. He said, what about when the Bible says you love what is evil, or you hate what is evil? So really, it's the direction in which you point that emotion that matters the most. And that blew my mind when I'm like, oh, wait, I can direct these emotions to work for me instead of controlling me. So if you want to learn that kind of stuff and you're struggling with your emotions, you're a Christian for a long time and you're depressed, you have anxiety, things like that, I highly suggest those episodes with Dr. Michael Davis, or Mike Davis. He does all these shows specifically on emotions. Most of them ones I have are on emotions, and I highly suggest you check those out. He also has a Facebook, so I'm plugging his stuff right now. The Emotional Success Coach, or Mike Davis. Go follow him on Facebook, and he definitely will reach out to you if you reach out to him if you need help with things like emotions. And he actually does like counseling as well. So he is a man who is constantly busy, and he's helped me out so much, even though I didn't like him at first. And you guys know that story if you've listened to this show. And now I went from not liking him when I first met him to he's the one who performed my wedding for me and my wife. So God turned things around for sure and made me realize that was a very important man to have in my life. So it was really awesome. Yeah, so that's why I recommend his shows. Nicolai. I just talked about Mike Davis. I know you had to go for a little bit, but anything you want to say in here? You want to interject? It doesn't have to be about Mike. Maybe something else, some other subject, and let's go from there.
Yeah, I was going back through some of the episodes, and I realized I actually haven't listened to all of them. I've listened to a lot of these episodes, though. I did notice, however, in scrolling through, that there was two Spanish only episodes.
Yeah.
Is that going to continue? Because I can't speak Spanish.
Yeah. No, not continuing. So yeah, we started a separate podcast. It was going to be on the same feed, but then we were thinking, let's do another feed. But then it was hard to just do it. It's hard enough to do this one episode, this Fire Theft Radio as it is. I mean, we have 70 something episodes,
right?
And it's only been in 6 years. That's very bad. The podcasts are putting out one a week. So they're doing 52 or more a year. So they're in the hundreds. We should be in the hundreds, but we're just too busy. We got our own lives going on, and we try to do at least some research before we get anybody on a little bit, because it's very time consuming. Otherwise, you're just on there and you don't know what to talk about with the guest. You're just like, oh, I don't know. So, It's very time consuming. I think people don't realize that. So we're doing our
So
best.
I just brought it up. I didn't know if there were if there was anyone out there who was all of a sudden like, hey, there's no more. Still waiting on some Spanish speaking podcasting
Yeah,
here.
yeah. I had this listener. His
So I
name
didn't
is
know if that
Dave.
was.
I had this listener. His name is Dave. I follow him on Instagram. He and someone else reached out. They're like, "Hey, what's up with these Spanish ones? Let's get them out here." And then we were like, "Well, let's look for." Here's one of the biggest reasons too. We were like, "All right, let's go look for people that know this content, the fringe conspiracy stuff, and are Christian and they speak Spanish." When we went on YouTube and searched, bro, everyone that, and I mean everyone, and sorry if I missed one, and I don't mean so to be so judgmental, but every single one of those characters were insane. I mean, beyond Alex Jones, they were just insane. And I don't know if it's the culture or it sounds crazier in Spanish, but I'm like, dude, you're out of your mind. I can't have, you're not leveled at all. Most of them said the world was going to end 2000 whatever, and the rapture was going to come in September every other year, and it didn't happen. So I'm like, dude, I cannot promote your stuff. You're like wrong a lot. And
Well, I mean, have you checked? Maybe it did, and they're gone.
maybe
Just saying.
I don't know. I've not checked again. And then we found out that Tim Alberino speaks Spanish and he does a lot of stuff in
Yeah,
Spanish.
he's putting out the yeah.
And so we were like, dude, let's get him on, but we could never work it out. We could never work it out with Tim and get time because I was busy or doing his research and it just never happened. Even as of recent, I was almost about to have him on and then we couldn't because Omar couldn't be here at that time. We're going to talk about his new book, Birthright. As we speak, his conference is happening. Today's May 7th, I believe. His conference is happening in Tennessee, and he's doing a conference over there right now. So, but yeah, I mean, that was the whole thing. Like, we wanted to get him on because he speaks Spanish, and he's more level-headed when it comes to a lot of things. And he doesn't sound insane or crazy. He's just does a lot of research. He's out there doing the work, you know? So I was just like, all right, let's get him on. But it just couldn't happen. So we ended up dropping what we called La Neta del Planeta, which means it's a funny way of saying the truth on this planet. The truth, yeah, it's kind of, it translates bad. It's like an idiom in Mexico. La Neta means, if I tell you, hey, dime la neta, like if someone tells you something unbelievable and you're like, neta, like that, it's like a question mark. It means like, for reals, like, are you serious? So uh, that's what we're calling La Neta del Planeta, which just means, the truth of the world kind of thing. And so, yeah, no, not continuing. Sorry, guys, not continuing.
Cool
Maybe,
name though.
yeah. I mean, I'm not disregarding it completely and saying we're never going to do anything in Spanish again, but definitely not with you, Nikolai. I'll tell you that. I don't know if people probably have
No, I
never
mean I
seen.
can just sit here,
Mm-hmm.
just laugh. I guess I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
I
don't know.
think looking back on this list here, one of the episodes I think that was one of the more interesting ones that I don't think enough is discussed in that realm is the episode 54, the Kung Fu episode, the
Yeah,
martial arts episode.
yeah.
This is very interesting stuff, and I think there's a lot of areas in that are they're just not discussed. It's assumed, oh, there's bad stuff over there, and people don't go over there and interact with it and talk with it. But I know, my wife. I just said twice. Did you hear that?
It's
Catching.
contagious.
It's the fire spreading. The concepts of healing. And when I say healing, it's just in general. Like normally we'd say medicine, but if you say medicine, then normally people think of taking pills.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the concept of healing. As far as like some people are really big on using food to heal. Let medicine be your food, food your medicine. Those types of things. It's an area, and you know what? Thinking back, this was, I think, maybe what we started talking about first. I just sent you a message. Hey, have you ever looked into this thing? And it had to do with the whole medical field and what's it called?
Oh, I remember the germ theory versus the terrain theory we started talking about.
Terrain theory. Yeah, some of those concepts. It's sort of like they don't even show up in sort of fringe Christian circles. It's like that's an
Mm,
area you don't really get into for some reason.
right.
I remember you're like, hey, do you have anybody that you? It's like I can't find anybody. I can't find anyone who's really talking about some of these things. And some people are wondering what in the world does this have to do with kung fu, but it has to do with that idea. Like our body does have some kind of electrical energy to it, but then if you say just energy, if you don't add electrical to that, then all of a sudden you're new agey.
Hmm.
I don't want to talk to you. And
Right.
it's like no, but there's something there.
Yeah.
It's something to discuss and to talk about. And if cultures all around the world are talking about this, and it's called like Eastern medicine, but if there's something there, then we should be thinking about it and questioning it.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. Those dogs.
I think it's probably turkey. Just like groups of turkeys around here.
No worries.
But anyway, that's one of the ones I thought was so interesting to kind of start to think through.
Mm.
Um, so I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Funny that you bring that up because as of late, I've been all about going back to. He's huge on online. I'm sure some people have heard of Liver King, and if not, go look him up. But he's out of his mind, though. He goes a little too far and consuming literal
Did you
blood.
say the Liver King?
Yeah, you know him?
Okay. No, I've never heard.
Yeah, look him up
Never
on
seen.
Instagram, bro. He is wild. Him and I follow Carnivore MD. His name is Paul Saladino. Was on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about how they got pretty much everything wrong when it comes down to eating meat and fruit and things that are not like processed and things like that. And they're all about like going back to your ancestral roots, and we should, hunter gatherer eat. And they've pretty much self treated. Had doctors on. Well, at least Carnivore MD has had doctors on that have gone back to this ancestral way of living, and they've cured themselves of a lot of autoimmune diseases because they're eating a certain way. Even people that were doing that and adding like cold dipping, ice dipping, were cured of certain cancers like lymphoma and things like that because it helps regenerate cells and all these things that are just like not really talked about in the Christian world and more talked about kind of in the new age world, but they seem to be real. And it's like this unlocked potential that we have in this body, which doesn't surprise me at all. And the thing that it's unfortunate, like a lot of these doctors are love kind of like to be spiritual, quote unquote, but they still attribute these things to evolution and saying our body has just evolved and it can do all these things that we don't know it can because it was lost in our ancestral roots. And I disagree wholly. It was like where I'm like, no, God created you, that you're made in God's image. Okay, you are a representative of God. It's so we have all this unlocked potential that I don't think we know we can do, and we're just used to living in this world where carbs are readily available. Processed food is so much easier to buy. You just put it in the microwave. Like it's just everything's simple. And I just put a post the other day. Heart disease and cancer killed 3 times more people than coronavirus did in the last couple of years. And nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about what causes the heart disease. Nobody's talking about what causes these cancers. And we well know there's all these carcinogens in all this food and processed junk that we consume, but no one's locking down Jack in the Box. No one's during the lockdown, the first lockdown of the world. No, Jack in the Box, McDonald's, all those stayed open. You can still eat all the junk you want, but they closed down the gyms and it made no sense. You get me? And people are dying of heart disease even more.
Yeah.
And all these things are never addressed. But yeah, go get your third, fourth booster, and then you can get some free Dunkin' Donuts and free Krispy Kreme.
Well, it's different because if someone ate a hamburger and then died, which has happened,
happens a
with
lot.
E. coli breakouts and whatever, when that happens, yeah, we start shutting stuff down. But if if you just have heart disease, Heart disease means the pharmaceutical companies make more money off you on your
Disease.
walk to death
Mm-hmm.
than if you didn't have heart disease. And so why shut that down? The really difficult thing, I'm not someone who totally demonizes all pharmaceuticals, because I know that, you
Right.
throw everything out there. That's not what
Right.
I'm trying to say, but
Right. Right. Right.
you remove all incentive for those companies to actually put something out that helps, because they make money on you being sick. Like, you have, and I know there's doctors, I know there's scientists, I know there's other people who are in that field because they want to help people. So I'm not saying everyone's evil, and I'm not saying that everyone is sitting there, you know, uh, with, their
Yeah.
Doctor Evil act with a stroking a
No,
cat in front of a
right.
fireplace saying,
But
"Oh,
it's a
we're going to
culture
kill them all."
thing.
I mean, there are some that are, but you know,
Yeah. No, I get you. But no,
but it's
I'm sure you're
yeah,
saying what I'm saying is like, but it's a culture thing. They grow up in this culture, and there's this thing going on in the background, and they're taught a
yeah,
certain thing, and they just go with what they know. It's not like they're being evil; they just go with what they know. They understand this a certain way, and that's what they teach, and that's fine. And I'm not saying everything's wrong either, but there is definitely a lot of room, and that's why I like that carnivore MD. I actually invited him on the show. Hopefully, he comes on because he's double doctorate and everything, and talk about that because when he go gets his reads on his blood work, it's much different than most people because he runs different. His whole body, he eats nothing but meat, fruits, milk, and honey. That's what he eats on a daily basis, and he eats a lot of it. He eats more than I eat, and he is so thin and so cut, and he's in such great shape, and he eats way more than I do. But he eats the good stuff. I eat some junk every now and then, and you can obviously tell I swell up, and that's what it is. I got a lot of issues with my gut, and he talks about that. Most people are not very fat; they're swollen because of the stuff that they eat, and they look fat. And if they just stop eating those, they unswell so fast. And it's true. Every time I do
yeah,
intermittent fasting, when I stuck to it for a month, my face got smaller, my hands, my ring was falling off my hand. Like, and I was still eating a lot, but I was giving my body a break to digest and eating a little bit better. And I unswelled so fast. It was crazy. And people were like, "Oh, you're losing weight." And I was actually still the same weight, but I just was unswollen, which is the crazy part. And so, yeah, there's definitely something to that. So I personally started buying, uh, started eating organs, but I can't eat
yeah.
organs. I think they're super gross. So I bought them in pill form, and I just have that every morning as like a supplement. And everything that is in organs can be found in vegetables without the toxins. I don't know if people know that. And that's what I'm starting to do, and hopefully it makes a difference. And I'm going to go with that, and little by little weaned off all the garbage that I do consume from time to time. And I have to just see if it works, whatever works best for me. Because most Christians, I think, don't pay no mind at all to what they consume, and they're just like, "Hey, let's pray for this food. Let's pray for this poison we're about to consume." And we got to be a little bit more mindful. And I know some stuff is not sustainable, not doable. So the more you cut off of the processed stuff, the better. That's all we're saying. The more some people just will take it too far, and they don't. I mean, I know, I get it. It's not easy. We can go down the path of shampoos, soaps, hand wash, all this garbage in there, suntan lotion, which is a greater cause of skin cancer. The sun doesn't cause cancer, eh, but people think that's what it is because that's what they teach these days, and it's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't cause cancer. It doesn't. And it just insane.
Right.
But it's a mixture of the sun and the stuff we consume, the processed junk, the chemicals. That's the stuff that comes out of our pores, causes skin cancer, things like that. And so again, there's a lot that we can talk about, but it's just I think people need to do their own research and come to their own conclusions. Hopefully, we can get people on to talk about that specifically.
I will say, just as a one of those things, like I was talking about before, if you hear a story, watch a movie, and it helps you kind of think through some of things, go watch the first Michael Keaton Batman movie. with Jack Nicholson.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say about it. Go watch that movie.
Okay. Well, that
And
sounds
it'll
like an easy
play
hack.
back into this discussion.
Okay. Well, there's definitely a lot of movies that you look back to that set up the future for sure. I was watching like the Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans, and they were talking about changing the world with RNA vaccines before the pandemic. And then the pandemic happened, and it's all that came to light was the RNA vaccines. And that's what the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies were about. And so again, it's just what it is. These movies are culture drivers, technology drivers. They're engineering us for the future. And we did a whole episode on that's why we do entertainment breakdowns with 007. That one's very relevant to setting up the fourth industrial revolution, in my opinion, which is something that I want to talk about on the show as well. So we can babble on for sure about a lot of things. But
Babylon.
Yes, indeed. But I don't want to do that. We are already a solid hour in. And if you guys listened to this whole episode and didn't click it off, you guys are true. You guys are true listeners of Fire Theft Radio. You guys are true fans.
Use this promo code for a free T-shirt. That's a joke. We don't have a free T-shirt.
No, but we are working. Cool. But we are working on T-shirts, by the way. But we'll talk about that. Actually, yes, we'll talk about that at the end of the show. So because we still, we'll talk about that at the end of the show. But Nicolai, anything you want to mention before we land this plane? We got our Saturday to get to over here on my side. We got a lot going on.
I know we have talked in the background about a lot of things that might be coming down the path. I don't know how much you want to tease some of those things. I think you just teased a couple things we're thinking about doing. The Fourth Industrial Revolution. We've talked about multiverse stuff, which we should talk about more. I just saw Doctor Strange 2.
You saw it already?
And I did see it. I'm not throwing out a review or an endorsement, but I'm just going to say that it introduces a lot of interesting ideas, and maybe not in the way that you think. So I think the multiverse topic, the multiverse idea, is becoming bigger and bigger, and you got to ask why. Right. So I think we've talked about that. So I'm looking forward to having those kind of conversations. So I'm excited for what's coming down the road. I'm excited for new T-shirts. I'm excited for a lot of things. I'm very excited, and yet I'm not the kind of person that normally jumps around or is like, this is me excited.
Right. Yeah. Good. Me neither.
This is me excited right here.
Me neither. Excited. And I'm excited as well. So that shows a lot for sure. So folks, stick with us. Listen to these tunes real quick. We will be right back.